Well, closing arguments are coming in tomorrow in the stolen reptile murder case over in Wisconsin. The question is whether this former cop, William Wild Bill Zelenski, killed his lover's son, and was it on purpose or was it a case of self-defense? Welcome to Profiling Evil. In this video on the 2020 murder of 18-year-old Ryelee Powell. His mother has already been convicted in the case, and now the accused triggerman, Wild Bill Zelenski, faces the jury in the closing hours of this case. It gets even weirder because Zelenski's wife approved of the affair, according to Powell. Now she says, no way. But either way, Zelenski is just hours from hearing whether he's going to be found guilty of murdering Ryelee Powell, or if the jury believes him that this was nothing more than an accident. Hey, hit that like and subscribe button and make sure you're ringing the bell so you're getting all of our videos here of Profiling Evil. Now let's look at this case a little closer, and we're going to do this one in high speed, folks. Zelenski was a former police officer who apparently was forced to resign rather than be fired. Now that information never came into the trial. I think the judge stopped it when the prosecution was hoping to maybe introduce it. And I talk a little bit about it on Court TV in a bit. But this thing is really important, the fact that he was forced to resign. Now the case revolves around an October 2020 burglary at his home where guns, alcohol, and reptiles were stolen, valued at more than $27,000. Now, why is his background so important? The prosecution spent a great deal of time trying to say he understood what de-escalation was as a police officer. He understood what the risk continuum was in regard to use of force, and in their opinion, he blew it. Well, after reporting his burglary and his suspicion that it was his girlfriend's son that was the thief, Zelenski called police, telling him all about the case, and he was told by police to stay away from the young man, and they would investigate the case. Zelenski says he did so, but he did end up stumbling across the suspected thief while he was driving around. Now, he may have some ability here to defend himself because he actually, on the 911 call, says he's on the wrong street. He thought he was somewhere else, and he really was. I don't think it was planned. I think that was actually what he was thinking. Well, when he stopped, an altercation ensued, and Zelenski pulled out a shotgun, which he pointed at Ryelee. In turn, Ryelee told him to put the gun down and fight like a man. Well, testosterone was boiling over that day, and Zelenski handed the gun to his girlfriend, Rylee's mother, instructing her to hold the weapon on Ryelee while he tried to assault him, or at least take him into custody. Well, she did exactly that, pointing the weapon. The problem was she was a felon and couldn't possess a weapon. Things escalated. Zelenski grabbed the gun back from the boy's mother and pursued Ryelee, and then the shooting occurred. So the question on everybody's mind, and the question that the jury has to solve, is, was this an intentional murder? Now, you know, something that nobody's talked about that I hope will come out, and I might get a chance to talk about it on Court TV, was the fact that, in my opinion, something really interesting happened. All reports suggest that when the shooting occurred, and you can see on a video that I'm going to show you in a moment, Zelenski points the weapon at Powell. Now, testimony came out that Powell grabbed the barrel of that gun and that he tried to wrestle the gun away from Zelenski, and then the shooting occurred, and this boy was shot point blank in the chest with the shotgun. Here's the reason why I think this is so significant, and I hope somebody will bring it out. Maybe it's something that the defense will bring out in the closing arguments, and that's this. If Zelenski happened to have his finger on the trigger of that gun, pointing the weapon toward Powell, and Powell grabbed the barrel of that gun either way and pulled the weapon trying to pull it away from Zelenski. Going back to Zelenski's position, the finger on the trigger, holding the gun, if it's pulled away, it's going to be pulled in this direction toward Powell, who's trying to pull the weapon away. That applies pressure on the trigger and could have been the reason why that weapon discharged. In effect, Zelenski may not have been the one who pulled the trigger. It may have been Powell who forced the trigger pull to occur, actually resulting in shooting himself. Now, you can read all about the allegations of abuses, threats, maltreatment, all of the things that employees complained about with Zelenski and his what they described as abusive, aggressive behaviors. And you can get all that online. So I'd encourage you to jump in the rabbit hole on this one and read up on it. You know, after listening to the trial, I'm kind of tossed between whether he's going to get an acquittal, that he convinced the jury, or he's going to get convicted. And I want to know what you think about this. Most of my concern is boiling down to whether the state did their job. And again, I expressed that concern on Court TV with Ted Rollins this morning, and I thought you'd like to hear that. So let's listen in.
They did discuss it, and bottom line is the court agreed with the defense that the jury shouldn't know that he was basically ousted from the police department. He was given this separation agreement, but if he didn't take it, they were going to get rid of him anyway. Bottom line is the jury's never going to hear it. Mike King is with us. He is a retired police commander, and he's the host of Profiling Evil. He's in Dallas, Texas. A perfect guest for us today here. This is a former cop who the state is saying did not use any of his training in his civilian life with this confrontation with his girlfriend's son. How do you think this cross is going? Is it pointed enough?
Well, I don't think it is pointed enough, Ted. And I'm hoping that what the prosecution's trying to do is get him to trip up so that they can introduce his background and his experience and his training, because all of that goes in the face of everything that happened in this case. The de-escalating, pointing a shotgun at somebody and pursuing them isn't de-escalating. And I'm really concerned about the way in which the prosecution is trying to cross here, because it's becoming so laborious that a jurist is probably getting pretty darn bored and pretty tired. And this guy continues to come across in a pretty good way. I mean, he may pull this off.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. One might not have thought that watching the first couple days of this trial, but at this point, I got to agree with you. This idea that the prosecutor's trying to trip him up, but is great. But on the other hand, she's spending a lot of time on this idea that he stopped when he saw his girlfriend's son walking down the street. I'm sorry. I would have stopped if I saw him and he was the guy that took the stuff and we were looking for him and there he is. I mean, who wouldn't stop there? That's human behavior. It's what he did afterwards, but it seems like this was so much about, but you stopped. You should have just, why didn't you just go get it? Well, of course, because I'm a human being. That's why I stopped. I find that falling flat on its face.
Yeah, I do too, Ted. And I think the thing that really troubles me is that we haven't done enough on the behavior of how did that shotgun end up in the car? What was the mindset getting that weapon and taking it with him when he's going for this confrontation? Was it actually part of the plan, of part of the confrontation, or does he always drive around with a shotgun sitting in the car? And I might have missed that in the testimony, but I think there's more that could be done leading up to that and talking about why that weapon ends up in the vehicle. And then he has multiple opportunities to separate as this thing's escalating. And I keep going back to this idea of de-escalation. And man, I'll tell you what, I'm just getting really tired of the questioning by the prosecution.
Yeah. Well, we'll get a break and have more. I think a question should be is like, you lost your temper, didn't you? You saw your girlfriend's son, you had your gun, and you lost your temper. There's none of that. To push his buttons yet. We'll see. It's not over yet.
So what are your thoughts on this one, folks? Do you think the state has proved their case? And how would you vote if you were on the jury today? Now, to add complexity to this issue, I'm going to play the actual video of the assault and the homicide, and it cuts out the gruesome part. I'll play it at regular speed at first, and then I crop it and slow it down so that you can better determine what happened. And then I hope you'll put your comments down below. So let's watch it. Well, there you go. I hope you'll put your comments down below, and I want to thank you for watching Profiling Evil. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and of course on Facebook as well. So folks, please go over and subscribe there. And check us out on Profiling Evil podcasts. If you like to listen to audio podcasts, go to your favorite podcast platform and download us. I think you'll enjoy some of the content there. And thanks again for your support of Profiling Evil. We'll see you soon at the next crime scene.